Howdy and welcome back to our daily Bible study. I am Matthew Gage, pastor at Faith Baptist Church in Decatur, Texas. And today we'll be in Genesis chapter number 31. Genesis chapter number 31. Now, let's see here. We got a pretty lengthy passage here to look at, 55 verses. So quite a bit of ground to cover here. What we have here and kind of set up from the previous chapter is kind of the fallout, the dealings between Jacob and Laban, and now Jacob departing to return back home to Canaan land, the promised land, to seek back out Isaac and Rebekah, his family. So that's what's going to begin here. And, there's a number of things we can look at here. Honestly, to me, there's not really heroes in this chapter. I really feel like almost everyone in this chapter is being somewhat of a scoundrel in some way. And Jacob's interactions with Laban's interactions with Jacob, the interactions between Rachel and Leah, and their interactions even with Jacob. It's just been a mess. Like I say, soap opera is one of the best terms I can come for this. And Jacob and Laban have basically been cheating and robbing each other through their business dealings, trying to one up or take advantage or get the upper hand on the other. And we finally kind of get a resolution to that at the end of this chapter. But like I say, this is not the kind of chapter where you're going to look at and say, wow, look at these great heroes of the faith. This is some very sad examples of humanity in this chapter. So let's jump right in. Genesis chapter number 31. We begin here, Jacob getting ready to leave. Now, remember where he was at before in the previous chapter is that his herd was increasing. He had been doing the breeding, whatever was going on there, and his flocks had increased. And so that's being noticed that his wealth is increasing greater than Laban's, and people are taking notice. So 31 verse 1. And he, that's Jacob, heard the words of Laban's sons, saying, Jacob hath taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father's hath he gotten all this glory. And Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. So Jacob is realizing, I think they're catching on to what's happening here. And he's, like I say, not feeling quite as welcome. So verse number 3. And the Lord said unto Jacob, return unto the land of thy fathers and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. So God makes a promise here saying, go back to Canaan, go back to where you grew up, and I'm going to be with you. But he does need to get out of Haran. He needs to get out of this place and away from Laban. Verse 4. And Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah. I keep saying Leah. I was watching a deal. I think it's more pronounced Leah. This is the way it's supposed to be. So I may vacillate between those two, and I apologize for that. I try to be consistent, even if I'm wrong in the pronunciations. I at least try to be consistent. Let's see. Sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field and to his flock, and said to them, I see your father's countenance. It is not toward me as before, but the God of my father hath been with me. And ye know that with all my power I have served your father. And your father hath deceived me and changed my wages 10 times, but God suffered him not to hurt me. If he had said thus, the speckled shall be thy wages, then all the cattle bear speckled. And if he said thus, the ring straight shall be thy hire, then bear all the cattle ring straight. Thus God hath taken away the cattle of your father and give them to me. And it came to pass at the time that the cattle conceived that I lifted up mine eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were ring straight, speckled, and grizzled. And I'm going to pause right there, and then we'll continue on with the dream and God's message here. I probably really went a verse further than I should have here. But let's look at what's being said here, what Jacob is saying. Jacob is acknowledging, the problem here. Laban's catching on. Laban, and there's some animosity, some jealousy building up. You'll note there these business dealings. Now, it's not recorded here except for right here, but talking about changing the deal 10 times. of whatever Jacob was supposed to get. We already saw how he kind of double crossed them on the 7 years working for Rachel, and then had to marry Leah, and then had to work 7 more years. So we already seen that double cross. So there's multiple times that this has happened. The previous chapter we saw the deal about that he would get all the spotted and speckled animals, while Laban would have the ones that were solid color. Well, he's explaining that, well, if this was the case, and evidently right then that's what it was, that God would work to benefit Jacob, and God was blessing Jacob, even though Jacob is a rascal, and Jacob is helping matters. I don't want to completely take away Jacob's hand in this. God is blessing Jacob, but Jacob is working towards that. So, and honestly, verse number 6, I don't know how much I trust that, where he talks about, with all his power, oh, I have worked so hard, I've just worked to make things better for your dad. Nah, he's been working to make things better for him too. So you may need to take a little bit of a grain of salt with everything he's saying here. Anyway, read a little bit further than I meant to there. Verse number 10 begins to see, he sees this dream taking place. And let's jump down to verse number 11. In this dream that he saw, where these rams and cattle are leaping and things, it says, and the angel of God spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, Here am I. And he said, Lift up now thine eyes, and see, all the rams which leap upon the cattle are ring-straked, speckled, and grizzled. For I have seen all that Laban doeth unto thee. I am the God of Bethel, where thou anointest the pillar, and where thou vowest a vow unto me. Now arise, get thee out of this land, and return into the land of thy kindred. So now he's saying, God spoke to me. Now, I don't think he's lying in this. Now, some of the stuff he said before, I think he's putting his old Jacob spin on. But God, I think, appeared to him, and this interaction really sounds right. God's showing him, saying, look, yes, you got the cattle, all the and the goats and things that were spotted and speckled and grizzled and all ring-straked and all these things, all these terms that are put there. But God's saying, I did that. You were trying to help yourself, but I'm the one doing it behind the scenes. So I'm the one you really need to be thinking, not your own power of your own hand. God reminds him of the vow that he had made, that if God would protect him in his way, he would serve God. Now, up to this point, I don't know how much he's been serving God. You're going to start seeing that progression with Jacob, where he's becoming more and more a man of faith, but still he's quite a rascal at this point. Verse 14. And Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, Is there yet any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted of him strangers? For he hath sold us, and hath quite devoured also our money. For all the riches which God hath taken from our father, that is ours, and our children's. Now then, whatsoever God hath said unto thee, do. So they bring up this question of like a dowry. And like I said, this is something I try to point out, and I'm not an expert in this at all. But my understanding in these ancient cultures is that a lot of times that payment made for a bride to kind of purchase a bride was not so much a purchase, but kind of like an investment in saying, look, I'm giving you this money as a sign I'm going to take care of your daughter. And so what they're saying here is that, the riches and things that Laban had, some of that should have belonged to them, but now Laban has lost it. Jacob's gain, Laban's loss, has also been their loss because of family inheritance. Now, it's interesting here to note that also, because generally speaking, these ancient cultures, and I mean, you can even go, like I say, even like Rome. I can't kind of count Rome the end of the ancient era with some of these customs and things, because Christianity came along and really kind of changed things quite a bit. But even in Rome, I mean, the women had very little, if any, kind of inheritance rights. That's very common in the ancient world. If you find a culture, a civilization where the women inherited or had these possessions or could even own property, period, they are the exceptions, not the rules. So with them even saying this, I think that's really quite interesting. I don't know how much they purely expected to get back, or how this was actually working there. I think that's very interesting that they're talking that way. Verse 17. Then Jacob rose up and set his sons and his wives upon camels, and he carried away all his cattle and all the goods which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting, which he had gotten in Padan Aram, for to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. So he gets everybody up and he puts them on camels. It is kind of a desert area and things. I don't think of complete sand dunes, just kind of more wilderness area, because I mean they do have to have plenty of land, pasture land and stuff for sheep to graze. But the camels, though, I'll point this out, camels are fast also, and especially in that kind of environment in a rough desert wilderness kind of area, camels can move quite fast, and you can move a long ways on one. Because they're storing up water and stuff like that. So when he's doing that, he's trying his best to get away and get away fast. Verse number 19. And Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's. We're going to get back to that. Verse 20. And Jacob stole away unawares to Laban the Syrian, in that he told him not that he fled. So those two verses setting up the scene. Jacob's secretly packing up and things, and it's time to shear the sheep. And Laban and his men are out in the field. They may have been a day or two away or something, but they're out of place where he can't keep an eye on Jacob. Jacob says, "Okay, everybody, let's go." They take all their possessions, they load them up, and they hightail it out of there. And unbeknownst to him, not only did he take his own possessions, but his wife had stolen something, idols from their father, which is also a good point. Why did Jacob need to get out of that place? Because there was idolatry. They seem to acknowledge the true God, but there still is idolatry. The same token as to why was it such a big deal for Esau to not marry the Canaanite women that he did. Is because of idolatry, trying to keep the faith, the religion pure. So this is very concerning to me, and it also, I think, explains some of the character that you see in Laban and even in Rachel and Leah, that they're not talking the same culture and faith that Abraham and Isaac may have had. And Jacob himself is not exactly an example of it this time. So note there that she is stealing idols, household idols, to take back with her. Now, why is she doing that? Maybe that's inheritance. Maybe that's revenge. Maybe she has some personal faith towards them. Maybe they're of value in stealing them. There's a number of things in play. The details really aren't given here, but this is a big deal when it comes down to it. And actually, I'm going to point out something. I was reading this before. I think God uses this situation to Jacob's advantage. Verse 21. So he fled with all that he had, and rose up and passed over the river, and set his face towards the Mount Gilead. And it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob was fled. And he took his brethren with him, and pursued after him 7 days' journey, and they overtook him in the Mount Gilead. Now, this place that they're at, this is on the east side of the Jordan River. They've made some very good time. That just proves that Jacob was hightailing it out of there, and Laban was also very fast in following after them. They were making some extremely good time. And I'm sure along the way, he probably passed the herds and things moving slower. Jacob is probably out in front, just moving as fast as those camels will take him to get ahead and get away. Verse 24. And God came to Laban the Syrian in a dream that by night, and said unto him, Take heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. So God has to intervene a little bit. I think Laban is seeing red. Laban probably wants blood. He wants to ruin this upstart who cheated him. Laban, they've been cheating each other. It's a terrible situation here. But God has to step in and say, Laban, you be careful what you say. God's made some promises to Jacob that he's going to take care of him. He's going to bless him. All those blessings of Abraham are following down Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, through to Jacob's descendants. And so God has to step in and say, Laban, you be careful what you say. You be careful what you do. Verse 25. Then Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mount, and Laban with his brethren pitched in the mount of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, what hast thou done that thou hast stolen away unawares to me, and carried away my daughters as captives taken with the sword? Wherefore didst thou flee away secretly, and steal away from me, and didst not tell me, that I might have sent thee away with mirth, and with songs, and with tabret, and with harp, and hast not suffered me to kiss my sons and my daughters? Thou hast now done foolishly in so doing. We're going to read verse 29. It is in the power of my hand to do you hurt, but the God of your father spake unto me yesternight, saying, take thou heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. Now, when he comes up here, this is one of those things, and some of the commentaries and stuff I looked at just briefly here, looking at this, they really cast doubts on the honesty of what he's saying, because he really comes up saying, why did you leave? I would have thrown a party. Why did you not let me say goodbye to my grandchildren? It makes it sound like Laban is a victim here in this, and in part of the ways he is. I mean, like I said, it's a very, very complex situation that he has. But he doesn't come in and say, Jacob, you stole my stuff. He's saying, look, why didn't you leave? We could have gave you a proper send-off. So it's interesting, the kind of the things that he says here, which I think is because God had warned him, Laban, you hold your tongue, you watch your temper, you don't go after Jacob. Okay, and he talks about the stealing gods, and by the way, the stealing away and stuff like that. All these hints at the one thing he's accusing them of is not stealing the sheep, but saying, you stole my gods, stole my idols. So I think that's kind of key to note here in that. Verse 31, Jacob answered and said to Laban, because I was afraid, for I said, peradventure thou wouldst take by force thy daughters from me. So Jacob said, I just did. I was scared. I was afraid you're going to take, not the possessions. We're not going to talk about all those flocks and herds and things, but I was afraid you're going to take your daughters back and your grandchildren, leave me without my family. Verse 32. With whomsoever thou findest thy gods, let him not live. Before our brethren discern thou what is thine with me, and take it to thee. For Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen them. So Jacob says, look, I didn't steal it. Whoever did, we'll kill them. Death penalty to them. I didn't want any trouble with these idols. I did not do that. This is one of the times where Laban kind of gets double-crossed, and Jacob had nothing to do with it. I think that's kind of humorous. But, like I say, not knowing that Rachel did it. Verse 33. And Laban went into Jacob's tent, and into Leah's tent, and into the two maidservants' tent. No, he doesn't call them wives, maidservants. Like I say, it's just a really weird deal. They're wives, but they're lesser wives. I think that's interesting. It says, but he found them not. Then went he out of Leah's tent and entered into Rachel's tent. So, all right, now we're narrowing it down. He's going into the right place. Verse 34. Now Rachel had taken the images and put them in the camel's furniture and set upon them, and Laban searched all the tent, but found them not. And she said to her father, let it not displease my lord that I cannot rise up before thee, for the custom of women is upon me. And he searched, but found not the images. So as Laban is going through everything, this is a very thorough search. The one place he doesn't check is the stuff that Rachel is sitting on. And what is she sitting on? This is the, equipment, saddle and storage stuff that they would have riding on the back of a camel. And so she's sitting there, and I won't get too much into that, but basically it's female thing there that she is talking about, to keep from going any more into that, saying, look, it's that time of the month here. Forgive me if I don't stand up. I don't feel very well. And so, search everywhere but there. And they don't find them. And see, I like this because you think about this. I had this thought. As Laban is doing this, now Jacob's going to get mad and kind of respond quite angrily back at Laban. But Laban can't now say, Jacob stole stuff from me. Why? Because he's went through everything, except didn't find the idols, the one place. But he can't go through. Jacob can now be blameless. He can't say, oh, you stole the silverware. Oh, you stole the jewelry. No, he's been through everything that Jacob has, so Jacob can honestly respond kind of a self-righteous manner here, saying, I didn't take anything. You saw. I didn't steal anything. Verse 36. And Jacob was wroth and chode with Laban, and Jacob answered and said to Laban, What is my trespass? What is my sin that thou hast so hotly pursued after me? Whereas thou hast searched all my stuff, and hast thou found of all thy household stuff? Set it here before my brethren and thy brethren, that they may judge betwixt us both. So he said, Look, you searched everything. What did I steal? Put it right here. We'll have a trial by jury. We'll put it in front of your men and my men. You just bring the proof, habeas corpus, to use a Latin legal term here. Deliver the goods here, deliver the bodies, literally what that means. But saying, prove to me what you're accusing me of. You can't prove that I have done anything against you. Verse 38. This 20 years have I been with thee, and that's the 20 years I know I mentioned before. I didn't have the exact reference. There it is right there, verse 38. Thy ewes and thy she-goats have not cast their young, and the rams of thy flock have I not eaten. That which was torn of beast I brought not unto thee. I bear the loss of it. In my hand didst thou not require it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Thus I was in the day the drought consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from mine eyes. Thus have I been 20 years in thy house. I served thee 14 years for thy 2 daughters, and 6 years for thy cattle, and thou hast changed my wages 10 times. We're going to read 42. Except the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac, had been with me, surely thou hadst sent me away now empty. God hath been my affliction, and the labor of God hath seen mine affliction, and the labor of mine hands, and rebuked thee yesternight. So he's saying, look, even God was telling you better watch yourself, because God knew that I was blameless in this. I'm completely blameless. Now these are 2 scoundrels talking to each other. Let's do that. But I think he is probably being honest here. Not that he hasn't kind of cheated and took advantage. We saw the little breeding program thing going on. Jacob was definitely helping out. God may have allowed the cattle and the goats and sheep to be born one way, but Jacob was doing his best to help out too. But I think he's probably being honest there in 38 and 39, saying, look at, I didn't bring to you and say, the wolves, the coyotes, they didn't have coyotes over there, that part of the world, but the wild beasts didn't come and kill the sheep. And oh, by the way, that was yours when it was actually one of mine. He's saying, if I ate sheep, I didn't eat yours, I ate mine. I think there was some honesty of business dealing in that case, and he's appealing to that because he's probably right in that case. And he talks about the labor he's put in, and basically, look, I've been with you 20 years. I've worked hard, appealing to that, and basically just saying, yes, I outworked you in some ways. Let's see here, verse 43. And Laban answered and said unto Jacob, These daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and these cattle are my cattle, and all that thou seest is mine. And what can I do this day unto these my daughters, or unto their children which they have borne? Now therefore come thou, let us make a covenant, I and thou, and let it be for a witness between me and thee. So Laban basically was like, look, that's my family, even the wealth you have, that was mine. And basically he's shooting himself in the foot, or cutting your nose off to spite your face, those kind of sayings. He's hurting himself if he's doing anything to Jacob. So he says, okay, Jacob, let's just have peace. Let's come to an agreement. Verse 45, and Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said unto his brethren, Gather stones. And they took stones and made an heap, and they did eat there upon the heap. So they make a raised area, piling up these stones. This is a place marker, a memorial, similar to what he did at Bethel, where he did the pillar and poured oil over it. Similar kind of thing here. Verse 47, and Laban called it, I'm going to do my best on this one. Jagar Sahudatha, close enough. But Jacob called it Galeed. Galeed. We'll go with that. Both of those, just different tongues, different languages there, but they both mean the heap of witness. This pile is a memorial. This pile is the testimony of the agreement being made here. Verse 48. And Laban said, this heap is a witness between me and thee this day. Therefore was the name of it called Galeed. I'll do my best. Verse 49. And Mizpah. That word means a beacon, a watchtower, once again pointing out that this is a landmark, a memorial, a signpost, something watching, in this case, watching also between the two of them, a testimony. It's going to kind of be a boundary, but also it's a testimony towards both of them watching out for each other, protection against each other, probably a better way to phrase that. It says Mizpah, for he said, the Lord watched between me and thee when we were absent from another. Why is he saying that? Basically saying, we're not going to be, you're leaving, we're not going to cheat each other anymore. So the Lord's going to watch and make sure, this is over between us. This is the final straw. And, here's the dividing line. Verse 50, if thou shalt afflict my daughters, or if thou shalt take other wives beside my daughters, no man is with us. See, God is witness betwixt me and thee. Verse 51, and Laban said to Jacob, behold this heap, and behold this pillar, which I have cast betwixt me and thee. This heap be witness, and this pillar be witness, that I will not pass over this heap to thee, and that thou shalt not pass over this heap and this pillar unto me for harm. I don't know why I think about, sometimes with little kids, sitting in the back seat of a car or something. And I know I've done this with my kids at times. And, you set something there in between. Okay, do not cross this. I'm saying, if you're traveling, a cooler or something, or a toy or a bag, or, set a book there or something and say, okay, you stay on that side, you stay on that side. Don't talk to each other. Don't touch each other. That's almost what these two people are doing is they're putting a line there and saying, I'm not going to cross it to cheat you. You're not coming over here to cheat me. We're just kind of coming to a stalemate in our relationship. Verse 53, Laban continuing, the God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge betwixt us. And Jacob sware by the fear of his father Isaac. Now, note here, they're really not doing this out of personal faith. Remember, Laban had idols. Jacob is a very strange thing. He knows who God is, but I don't think God is personal to him yet. So when he is swearing, he's not doing it through his faith and his respect towards God, but that of his father Isaac's. So I think that's interesting in all these names being thrown out. They're like, oh, it's my dad and my uncle, but not my God, not my faith, my respect towards them. Verse 54, then Jacob offered sacrifice upon the mount and called his brethren to eat bread. And they did eat bread and tarried all night in the mount. And early in the morning Laban rose and kissed his sons and his daughters and blessed them. And Laban departed and returned unto his place. So finally, after 20 years, here is Jacob coming back home. He's about to the banks of the Jordan River now, or getting close there. He's now separated from Laban. This past 20 years, the labors for his wives, the family that has grown, the wealth he has accumulated during that time. That whole story now comes to an end, and we're going to see coming up in the next chapter where he's going to come over, and of course now he's just left Laban and had to deal with that and had that encounter, but he's still got another uncomfortable encounter ahead of him, and that's where we get in chapter number 32. He's still got a brother who said he wanted to kill him. Basically said, I'm gonna shoot you down next time I see you in this town. Going back to some of the Western imagery and things, but he's still got Esau waiting for him. So how's that going to play out? Well, next time we'll get to that. So anyway, I appreciate you watching, and I hope it's been a help and a blessing to you.